Today we will discuss about REST standards, packages, and then how we will be code in our Spring Boot application using layered architecture. So we will discuss all these topics today in our demo. So let's see. So coding with REST API. So what is API exactly? Where two systems can communicate with each other, softwares can communicate with each other using APIs. So that is the API. Let's see some example how we will work in this. So REST is nothing which stands for representational state transfer is an architectural style for designing networked applications and RESTful APIs, application programming interfaces. Before that, we will understand REST, but before that, we will understand what is the API and how it is work and what is the web API. That will be look. Before this, I have given some definition about API that two systems can communicate with each other using API. So here is the API stands for the application programming interface, and it's a set of rules and tools that allows different software applications to communicate with each other. API defines method, data formats that application can use to request and exchange the information, enabling different software systems to interact with each other without having to understand each other's internal workings. So APIs are used in various contexts such as web development, mobile app development, and software integration. Types of APIs can be web APIs, library APIs, and REST APIs. So over API, over web server, internet browser, when we pass request and communicate using URL and HTTP with another system that's known as web services and web API. It's a common definition what I have given. So APIs are often used to enable communication between a web server and client application, such as a web browser and mobile app or other server application. The server exposes a set of endpoints or URL that the client can use to request a specific action or retrieve information. Even server to server communication can happen with web API. So that's the example of web API and using standard protocol like HTTP and HTTPS and REST representational state transfer, and some are using SOAP also, simple object access protocol. These are the some styles for designing web APIs. And the REST, before this also I have already told about REST, that's a representational state transfer architecture style and RESTful APIs. So are APIs that adhere to principle of the REST. These APIs use standard HTTP methods such as a GET, POST, PUT, DELETE for the communication are designed to be stateless, scalable, and easy to understand. Stateless means that when we request any as a end user, Using, let's take example of a browser. Using browser, we are requesting using HTTP protocol and URL. So every request is new. Whenever we request, it does not remember the previous state and the previous request. That's the mean of the stateless. And nowadays, then RESTful APIs have become a standard for designing web services. Are commonly used in combination with the JSON, which is known as a JavaScript object notation for the data representation. It, it's like key value pair. Key value pair. JSON, when we like convert from Java object to the JSON, it's like key value pair object we get in terms of response. So now we will discuss around REST guidelines revolves around concept of resource, and resource can be anything. It can be, if you can take example of employees, students, mobile, shop, period, anything. Payment, it can be anything. You can take of example of book, students, employee, movie, order. So these are the resources. So resources is anything that can be uniquely identified and accessed. It can have unique identity and manipulated over the web via URL. In URL we use the HTTP concept. So manipulated, like we can manipulate the data. Implies it can be created, retrieved, updated, and deleted using HTTP methods. Guest, post, put, and delete. URL identifies the location of resource on the web. If consumer want to access the resource, they need to specify the URL using HTTP methods. Correctly, REST APIs rely on standard HTTP methods to perform CRUD operation. Like these are the methods I have taken already the names of those methods, and if I can describe a little bit detail about it, like get, post, put, patch, delete. Get used for the retrieving data, read only operation. Post to submit the data, create the data, create employee, create student. We can take the example. Put put HTTP method is useful to update the resource and replace the existing resource, update the data, and patch is used for the partially updating the data, delete to remove the data from the server and remove the resource to the server. So if we take example to post, like if we take example of users, so post like we are creating new user into the our database. We take example where we store the data. So database we create new user. Okay. So by using particular ID, like in database, the user is stored with any ID. So when we want to get those data from the database, then using get HTTP method, we can get using unique ID, fetch a user with a specific ID. Put, if we want to update the data using particular ID, we can update those data. And we want to, if we want to delete data, we can delete the data by delete method of HTTP with a specific ID. And get is also used for the getting all the data from the database. So these are the methods we use. So let's understand with the sub notes and the diagrams. Coding with REST API. We use HTTP protocol, HTTPs and HTTP protocols. HTTPS is known as for the security, so that's why HTTPS, and we mainly use HTTP protocol for the communication, for exchanging the data information and requesting as a end user. If we take example of browser on any application like Postman, using URL we can do that request. So how to use URL to reach to the method of the controller. So we are using URL before coming to the controller in our Spring Boot application. The request come to the Tomcat server, then it's processed, then it come to the controller, and it happened using request and HTTP protocol. How to pass data using HTTP concept received in the Spring Boot application. Now we will be discuss. So theoretical we have already discussed that how APIs, HTTPs, and REST standards guidelines. Now we will show some code how it will work. So before that, let's discuss a little bit thing rules to develop REST API. So as I said already in the when we were discussing the theory, resource can be anything which is unique, identified, unique ID of that resource. Find resource or develop APIs around the resource. It can be subject, payment, session, book, movie, students, employees. Write the resource as a plural form. Using URL, we should be able to unique identify the resource, and we can perform CRUD operation as we discussed before this also. So create employee, read, get details of employee, update employee, and deliver. If we take example of employee, it can be user and employee also. So let's take example of employee. How can we perform CRUD operations? So create employee, read, get details of employee. It can be by identifying only one employee by ID, or it can be all employees. And then we can, if you want to update any employee details, so we can update, and we can delete also. REST gives guidelines how to work with this resource using HTTP concepts. Create employee, post methods for the creating the data, and if you take example employee, to write logic to create an employee, return unique ID back. But that ID we can get the data again from the database. So request data should come as a JSON body. Response start to providing JSON. So employee data pass as a request body, and we can pass JSON request body also, and we can process the data and get in the response in terms of JSON body also. So you can see here employee data pass as a request body, JSON request body, processing and save, generate unique ID, and returning ID in response, return object. So for all individual resource, you create corresponding controller class. In controller class, where you define all the endpoints of post, get, put, and delete. Like whenever end user is requesting from the browser, it comes to the Tomcat server and the processing. come till the controller class, and that HTTP method, what we defined on the controller, it triggered, and with this logic is worked there, and then according to that, response will come in JSON. So below controller is dealing with all employees, resources, activities. So at the rate request mapping slash employees public class employee controller. Third, when you are making temporary changes, you need to revisit the code in the CRUD application. So as I discussed before, this post employees, then read operation to get the employee by ID, and if you want to get all data, so we can get all employee details and put to update, paste to update partially data, only one data. It can be contact number, it can be anything, it can be name also. If you want to update all data, we can use put employee ID with unique ID. So CRUD operation on a resource, post employee employee get particular employee detail by ID only, and get all employees using get HTTP method, and query param. It's used for the pagination. So let's see. Now we will look into the code. So before going into employee, I have created test controller. How it will work, I will show here, and what changes I have done in terms of post, get, post mapping, get, and put, and then we will go into employee control also. We will see and how I worked there. So let's see via code. So we use at the rest rest controller on the, it can be on any controller. So we use any controller like student controller, employee controller, anything. You have to use at the rest controller annotation. So at the rate request mapping, we are mapping the request via using slash test. So now we can see get mapping. Here we have taken created normal method. So if we will use this get mapping, so we will get, and now I'm going to show you. You can see we use at the rate get mapping slash m2, and when we will request from the postman, so you will see you will get this response. So let's see how will we get. So you can see I will be sending from here, and you can see we will get, you can see hello world from the table my method. True. Okay. So post mapping, very simple example we can take here. Here you can see post, that we will get, this is the post mapping. Before this, I have shown you get mapping. So if we use here in postman post, so Be careful. See, here is the hello world from the capital. My method to now it will be changed to my method post because we are using the post mapping. So you can see my method post 2. This result has come there. I have run, you can see it is working fine. Uh, how will it work? I will show. You can see Tomcat started on port 8083, or we can start Spring Boot application run as a directly from Spring Boot app. So we can run. So my application is already running. So I am showing to you. So yeah, now we will go and see the employee controller how it is work. Before version 2 we will go employee controller how it is work. Before this I want to show the service layer also of this. No, we are using directly, so there is no service layer because we are testing, so that's why we are using directly or getting response or whatever the business logic we are writing